Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings. Welcome to week number 3 of Up, Up, and Away. Today we are talking about flow state. Be like water. How often have you heard or read, been told, or something? Go with the flow. Chill. Just go with the flow. And how often was the how to go with the flow also shared? Like, how many of us know what is the way to do this? Breathe. Because this idea of living beyond the beyond by living a trans-spiritual life, yeah, I know that's a new term for you, and we're going to be delving into it more and more over the next couple of weeks, just in general, but living beyond the beyond by living a trans-spiritual life, that in and of itself is an embodiment of what it means to live, not only in the flow, but as the flow itself. We think of our world as solid, solid stress ball, solid cell phone, solid coffee cup, even the liquid in the coffee cup. It's a solid. It's liquid, but liquid, it's tangible. It's a solid. And yet, Dr. Holmes reminds us that we are dealing with a fluent force. We can learn to flow with liquid law. Love the poetry. We can learn to flow with liquid law and not be stopped by whatever appearances show up that convince us that this thing is solid and immovable. It takes a shift in consciousness, however. It takes us grounding in the principles of truth in order to look at, quote unquote, solid facts, to look them in the eye, to look them directly in the face and say, you are not so real after all. And we're going to talk about this because, in essence, what we're saying is, even though this thing that is showing up shows up, doesn't mean we cannot effect change. It doesn't mean that because of what it is or how it's impacting us, how it's whatever it is, it doesn't mean we cannot change it or us in relation to it. It is not solid in the way that we think of it's the way it is. Racism is and it will always be, and prejudice and it will always be. We are assuming that these things are like solid facts that cannot be transformed or transmuted, and yet they are. Just as we have come to understand that thoughts are things, thoughts shape our reality, our mental equivalent, thoughts, words, emotions, and feelings, and actions, all of this, thoughts are things. Then we also then become aware that these thoughts, this mental equivalent, takes form. If I think that women are subservient, that thought, that belief, that consciousness will show up in my words. It will affect the way I feel, and it will show up in my actions. Thoughts are things. Thoughts take form. So if we're going to pick a thing, if whatever that is, we're going to world peace, whatever that thing is, equity and justice, whatever that is, then we must change our mental equivalent. Because changing our mental equivalents, not just our thoughts, changing our mental equivalents is what changes things. So Dr. Holmes says, fluent force. Fluent meaning expressive, all of these things. Fluent, communicative. But fluent also means to flow, right? In learning American Sign Language, there was the time when um, um, hello, uh, my um, name is not fluent, till eventually you continue to practice and improve and practice and improve and practice and improve until eventually you get to the place where it's, I don't have to think about it anymore. You just sign. Hello, what's up? What's your name? My name is Ray. Fluent, it flows. There's a certain level of smoothness to it. Your language becomes as fluid, it simply flows easily and effortlessly. There is flow. Go with the flow, man. Be like water. Move in a certain manner with a water comes, there's a rock. The water doesn't, oh man, there's a rock. Water will go around it. Water will go over it. Water will continue to crash upon it until it wears it down and moves over it or through it. That's how we got the Grand Canyon. So be like water, be like spirit, be fluent and fluid and flow. Within all of this, there is, I move through life with ease and grace. I move through life fluently. I live my life fluently. I move and have my beingness as ease and grace. And because I do that, then when I am having courageous conversations, when I am face to face with whoever this individual is that believes that women should be like in The Handmaid's Tale, I speak to them from this space of I am fluent and well versed in the language and the energy of God. And so I address them from that space with the art of ease and gracefulness, balance and harmony, rather than there's nothing I can, and then frustration sets in. No. If it is mine to do, as we talked about last week, if it is mine to do to have a conversation with this individual, then I'm going to do it from a space of ease and grace, a space of fluidity and fluency, artfulness. Breathe. Because very rarely do we look upon our regular everyday lives as one, art or an art form or artistry. But everything that we do, dancers practice, archers practice, the Tai Chi master practices. All of these things involve a certain level of practice, getting into the space of ease and grace, getting into the space of the zone where that which is being chiseled, the chisel, the hammer, and the being doing the hammering, as well as that which is being set free from the stone, all of them become one and the same. There is no separation. There's simply the activity of flow, the activity of God moving and acting as itself, through itself, upon itself, to express itself. So, how fluent are you in the language of the universe? How well do you flow as the embodiment of the universe? Flow is the melting together of action and consciousness, the state of finding balance between skill and how challenging whatever a particular task may be. There is the balance between. There is the yin and the yang. There's the ebb and the flow, and how they seamlessly melt together. How are you flowing? Well, in your life, just in general. How and what is the melting together in your life of action and consciousness? And what is it demonstrating? Where in your life are you not in balance? You are out of balance. Relationships, marriage, education, occupation. Where are you out of balance? Finances, self-care. Because if we can identify where we are out of balance, if we are willing to identify where we are out of balance, then we increase the likelihood, we increase the opportunity, the potential of restoring balance. Dr. Holmes says, in dealing with this subtle power of mind and spirit, we are dealing with a fluent force. It forever takes form and forever deserts one aspect of the form for which it has taken in order to become a new form which it is taking. No one ever steps in the same river twice. The form that the river is taking now gives way to the next form that the river is taking, and the next form that the river is taking. I can say the word Raymont, and yet my saying it now, Raymont, is not the same as I said before. Form gives way to new form, even when it seems like Raymont. It's the same form, but is it? No, technically, no. It's a different breath in a different moment from a different state of being. So even though it sounds the same, even though it may accomplish the same purpose, it is still a new expression of. Dr. Holmes goes on to say, spirit fills all space and animates every form. Now, let's pause for a second. If spirit is everything already, then that space is already, well, one, it can't be empty. So there is no even spirit fills the space because there is no space that is void of. So, right. So once again, Holmes is doing this for linguistic convenience. And we are invited to move into a space that says, into a space that understands spirit automatically is in the space as the space through the space. It is the space and the spacelessness. Spirit animates every form because spirit is whatever that form is. Therefore, spirit is the true actor in everything. But spirit can only act for us by acting through us. Spirit takes form by being the form. God can only give us what we take. It's one of my. Keep reading, keep reading, keep reading. Don't change anything yet. Just keep reading. God can only give us what we take. We must resolutely determine to see and to accept that spiritual substance is forever flowing to us as the supply for all of our needs. Now, our invitation is one of the things we've talked about many times during our Wednesday night Science of Mind and discussion group. God is always giving us, and not giving us as an anthropomorphic separate, but God is always providing because God is all there is. So that which we need is already available because God is already available. It's all there is. So the question is, think of it like a compliment. Someone gives you a compliment. Are you willing to take it? Are you willing to accept it? It's being provided. It's right there. But are you willing to hear it, quote unquote, receive it, allow it, embody it? It's the same thing for anything else regarding that which God is. Are we willing to receive it? Now, a couple of things. One, as we end our year, I want us to also move into a space of being willing to change. Remember, we talked about changing form. Changing form occurs by changing our mental equivalent. And changing our mental equivalent occurs by changing our thoughts, our words, right? By changing all of it, being willing to change all of it. Much like recycling, it is taking one thing of one form and transforming it into another form. Clay into another form. Paper into another form. Water, solid, liquid, gas, and it evaporates and changes form. Now, I mentioned this specifically, and as you'll see in the lower corner images that we may remember from Dr. Emoto's concept of how we change the structure of water through our thoughts. Now, there is the concept of science, and then there is the concept of pseudoscience. There is the concept of metaphysics or quantum mechanics, and then pseudo quantum mechanics. And I want to invite us into a space of diving deep, and instead of simply saying, I believe or I don't believe in this, even when scientists or whoever is saying whatever they are saying, check in and say, I believe this. Why do I believe it? Everyone else says there is no such thing as Santa Claus, but I believe there is. Why do I believe it? Everyone else says there's no such thing as paranormal activity and it is pseudo-science, but I believe it. Why do I believe it? There is no evidence of aliens, but I believe in aliens. But why? Right? So rather than completely dispel or dismiss any of it, investigate further. Investigate further and ask yourself, do I believe in reincarnation? Why? What is my reason for? What is my why for? What is my how does my belief in this affect or improve the quality of my life and relationships, etc.? And the list goes on. So this is an invitation to be like the Sherlock Holmes of metaphysics. And rather than simply dismiss or discredit whatever it is, but you may have heard me if you've been with me any length of time, Jesus, real person, fictional person, metaphysical symbolic, etc. For the sake of conversation, let's say just pick one. And what are the implications of? So you don't have to believe in Jesus as a historical figure to still reap benefits of the symbolism that he represents. Superman, the symbolism that he represents. Yoda, the symbolism. Mr. Miyagi, the symbolism. So same thing as we move through anything that I speak about or teach, any of these quotes, anything, rather than simply receive it, accept it, and say, this is the gospel and I believe. Ask yourself, do I believe it? If so, why so? If not, why not? Get to that space of deep introspection and questioning and inquiry so that you find what resonates and is relevant for you in your spiritual practices and in your life. Each of us is invited to do this. We need not make something or someone else, in the general sense of the word, wrong. Now, clearly, if someone is a practicing Christian nationalist, that religion is about oppression, domination, controlling, etc. In and of itself, it is not life affirming, and I need not give it the space or the capacity to breathe or exist within my consciousness, within my family, within my world, because that does not promote a world that works for all. But I do want to understand it, because there are many people who that is their mental equivalent and that is their consciousness, and I cannot do what is mine to do to help heal it if I don't understand it. Excuse me. So whatever is taking form, a new form can be when we understand how a new form can be, when we embody how a new form can be. Breathe. Dr. Holmes says a practitioner of this science, science of mind and spirit or religious science, should not be confused over any given form, but should know that any form which is not of the original harmony is subject to change. Any form that is not life affirming, the original harmony, is subject to change. And I would venture to say, it's not just subject to change, it's going to change. But the question is it changing? So we reach a point of things are scale of 1 to 10, things are at a 10. But if there is an ever expanding and eternal and infinite, then what I'm deeming as a 10 may not actually be the limit. So I get to a 12. It can continue to change and grow and evolve. So rather than be stuck or bound by the form, be bound by what is or what was, be set free by what could be. A world that works for all doesn't exist right now as a lived experience, but it could be. We can move it from the space of what is potential, what is possible, to what is probable, to what is inevitable. But am I doing the work to even see it as a possibility? Or am I simply confused over some form that is presented in front of me? War, racism. Does the form prevent me from seeing freedom and liberation and a world that works for all? Soren Kierkegaard says, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. Once again, if we don't seriously get into a space of inquiry, question the question, and questions the answer that came from the question it all. If we don't do that, then it is going to be easier to be fooled because someone told me that. And I take them at their word. I didn't inquire. I didn't ask if it was fake news. I didn't check the validity of the meme to see if it was AI generated. So I was fooled. But then someone points it out to me. Do I continue to believe, or do I continue to refuse to believe? Or do I sit in a space of and in that space of I am open to learning something new, improving and evolving, enlightening, transforming, whatever it is. But in that space of, deep questioning and inquiry, that's where the transformation happens. So just because Ernest Holmes said it doesn't mean I have to believe it. What worked for him when it worked for him then. Does it work for me now? With the world the way it is now, does it work for me now? The way he phrases things, does it work for me now? For me, the answer in general, sometimes yes, sometimes no. That's why you often see me remixing, not just his words, but others' words as well. Because I am phrasing them in a way that is one, either more life affirming for me, invites me into a deeper space of being beyond the beyond, a space of being in Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0, something, a way that for me makes it more relevant and applicable in today's world, a way that truly addresses everyone's needs and wants in order to create a world that works for all. Because otherwise, we are still continuing to be fooled. We are continuing to believe that the shadows that we see projected on the wall of life, we believe that the shadows, in fact, are real, rather than there being something behind that is being projected based upon. So we see racism projected on the wall of life, but we don't turn around to see what is the thing casting that shadow. Where did this thing that is casting the shadow come from? Why is it there, and how do we eliminate it so that it is no longer there blocking the light? But once it is gone, then the true light shines and illuminates the wall of life. It illuminates the space that we inhabit on this small blue marble called Earth. But we are so bound and focused on looking at that which is projected, the shadow of, the thing that is blocking the light. Because that's, in essence, that's what the shadow is. There's something that is blocking the light. And in the blocking of the light, it casts this shadow. Right? Like you can hold up a pretzel and the light will cast the shadow. Can I eat the pretzel that I'm seeing cast on the wall? No. So why believe that it's real? Well, because I was conditioned to believe. Yeah, I got that. You were conditioned to believe that this thing called war and poverty, and yes, you were conditioned to believe that it is in fact a real and tangible thing. And yet, our invitation now is to dissect it, question it, contemplate deeply. What is this thing that I'm looking at? Where did it come from? What is the consciousness that keeps it as this thing that I am continuing to see or experience in life? Now, how do I go to the space of causation? What is mine to do in the space of causation that changes the effect? Because once we change the effect, we change what is outpictured. In all of these examples, the thing that is casting the shadow and the shadow that is being cast are vastly different. From simply looking at the thing that is back of the shadow, we wouldn't presume to see what is actually being cast. Right? You look at that thing, you don't see Michael Jackson in that sculpture, but you see Michael Jackson as the cast shadow. You don't see Darth Vader in the object, but you see that as the cast shadow. So if you look at the shadow and believe that the shadow is in fact the fact, then we can't change the fact. We can't change the form. We can't change the cause because we're not seeing how they are correlated. But the moment you change the cause, it changes the effect. And one of the great things about this is we need not see the shadow as the bad guy, the villain, the enemy. We can see the shadow as an art form that serves a purpose. And when we understand causation, we are then better able to cast creative shadows for creative reasons in life affirming ways. We are better able to assemble the various things of life and bring them together. And by changing our perception or our perspective, our viewpoint of, we see life differently. There's a completely different image of what is there based upon where you are standing. It's the exact same thing with life. Based upon where we are standing and how we are looking at what we are looking at, it changes. So it doesn't change what's in front of us, but it changes what we perceive. Breathe. So as Dr. Holmes says, if we seek to combat evil, we should be careful not to make evil real. There is a place in the mind which intuitively knows that good overcomes evil, and there is no place which knows there is no evil to overcome. There is no evil to overcome. So our argument then is between the experience of evil and a solid conviction that good is the only reality. Now, this is not saying or implying that evil or bad things don't exist, right? So the remix. If we seek to eradicate evil, we must ask, what is the consciousness that makes a person's mental equivalent that of evil? Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, any number of people. So what we call evil as a behavior, while being very real, is not real as an outside force or a force outside of our control. There is no evil, no adversary, no devil for us to overcome. So our practice then is between the experiences of evil and a solid conviction that there is good that comes from engaging in healing, which is the only reality that we are invited to act from. So whatever it is that we perceive as evil, bring healing to it. Whether it is evil as a systemic, evil as a behavior, evil at, bring the healing presence of truth to it. Rather than point the finger and simply blame evil. Racism is bad, it's evil. There's a consciousness that created it. There is a consciousness that perpetuates it. Gender bias. There is a consciousness that perpetuates it. Not just created it way back when, but that continues to bring healing to it, bring the truth to it, that it may be transformed. Breathe. After all, isn't this the exact same thing that surgeons do? Right? They see the problem, they see the issue, the illness, the disease, and they act by bringing healing to it. They act through certain practices that further encourage and nurture the body's ability to heal. So our practice then is between the experiences of illness, injury, and disease, and a solid conviction that there is effective medical treatment that does the patient good, which comes from engaging in effective medical healing practices, which are the only reality that we are invited to act from and engage in. just as physicians do this with physical and even psychological and mental illnesses and diseases. They are physicians, and we are metaphysicians. Are we doing the same thing, though? Many of us metaphysicians, we bypass and malpractice versus practicing effectively to do this very thing. So when we are faced with the illness and the dis-ease and the injury of, we understand that there is no systemic evil. There is no devil, there is no Satan. And yet we could, yes, 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 Tracy and Sue, there is another, yes, acronym. Stagnant, apathetic, traumatic, and unresolved. Antichrist, that which is the opposite of the true consciousness of, and non-life affirming. So not today, Satan. Not today, energy that is stagnant, energy that is apathetic and indifferent, energy that is not today. Because today I am practicing, I am embodying from a space of healing. So all of that can go in the trash. So our practice then is between the experiences of evil and a solid conviction that there is good that comes from engaging in healing, which is the only reality that we are invited to act from. How are you invited to act from this reality? When you are, whatever your particular thing to do is regarding such things as the clan, what is your from? I am invited to act from as I address this illness, this dis-ease. Whatever this is, the gender pay gap, what is your invitation to act from? Whatever it is, what is your invitation for you specifically? The highest consciousness is not one of possession, but of being. The greater your consciousness of being, the more automatically will the law flow from this consciousness into the acquisition of the things you desire. Breathe. What do you desire? And I mean, really, what do you desire? Do you desire a world that works for all? Do you desire greater health and well-being? Do you desire to have the awareness that you are whole, perfect, and complete? What do you desire? More money? What do you desire? Love? What do you desire? What is your motivation? What motivates you? What is your motive for living life the way that you do? Because as Dr. Holmes says, the highest consciousness is one of being. So what are you being? And as you are being it, then there's no resistance to it. It flows with ease and grace, which is how it takes form as the things you desire. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am awake and ever awakening to my divine self. Be still and know that a world that works for all is inevitable as I do what is mine to do via living science of mind and spirit as a way of life. Be still. Do not struggle or try to exert your will to move in life. Flow and know who and what you are, and live by being what you know yourself to be. Emerson says there are no fixtures in nature. The universe is fluid, fluent, and it is volatile. Permanence is but a word of degrees. Our world, seen by God, our world as expressed by God, is a transparent law, not a mass of facts. The law dissolves the fact and holds it fluid. In other words, it's all in motion. It's always changing. This is why we say we are not bound by precedent. We are not bound by the illusion of permanence. But we understand impermanence as a divine truth. We understand impermanence as principle. Change is inevitable. Change is truth. It's always changing, always moving, always evolving, always. So how are we embracing this? How are we navigating this? Because all of this is part of what it means to be in the flow. The Buddha said the footprint of the elephant is the largest of all living animals of this time. Likewise, the thought of impermanence is the biggest imprint that we can make on our mind with the most profound impact. As we move into the space of flow and fluency and fluidity, we leave an imprint. There's an impact in our consciousness that greatly affects how we live, move, and have our beingness. And so, like the elephant's footprint, contemplating impermanence makes this deep, resounding, influential impact on our consciousness, our mental equivalence. Acknowledging that everything eventually ends can affect the way that we live today. Carpe diem, we seize the moment. There are infinite examples of impermanence, these momentary changes in life stages and aging and ultimately death. Change is truth. So how are we invited to embrace change, to flow with change? As Buckminster Fuller said, there is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. There may be nothing specific in who we are showing up to be that says what we truly are. And yet, as Diana Prince beautifully demonstrates for us, just because what you see is what you see doesn't mean there isn't a deeper truth back of the mask, back of whatever that particular form is. And so just like her, we are reminded that there is this form, but back of this form, there is the divine, there is God. Back of this form, there is the divine, there is God. So how do we bring the truth of science of mind and spirit to heal this? Any of this. How do we bring the teaching of science of mind and spirit 4.0 to heal any and all of this? How do we move through our declaration of principles in a way that brings healing and transformation to all of this? How do our we believe statements invite us into a more fluent understanding of law and principle, the divine, and healing, so that we can effectively heal individually and collectively and create a world that works for all. As Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world, because in fact, that's the only thing that ever has. Are we committed enough to change the world? Are we fluent enough to change the world? The Science of Mind and Spirit as a Liberation Theology offers us the ability to live with ease and grace, to flow as Spirit flows. When we understand what it means to live a trans-spiritual life beyond the beyond, there is a certain stress, struggle, and strain of life that fades away. This does not mean that there will not be moments of any of this, but rather they are not and they cannot dominate our lives. Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 is living not only in the flow of life, but as the flow itself. And like any master artist, there is a seamlessness between the artist and the art. They are one thing expressing in unified, harmonious, improvisational flow of beingness. This is Be Still and Know. Be still and know that you are the I am that is ever incarnating itself as you. Tat Tavam Asi. You are it. Brave. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me the second time around. I am elevated. I take off and I move from the flow state of consciousness, and I sow goodness wherever I go. Together. I am elevated. I take off as I move from the flow state of consciousness, and I sow goodness wherever I go. So it is. This week's Thursday night study questions or your personal journal questions. Number 1, what are some of the best ways I can make a difference in my life? In the life of those closest to me? All of the way for others, for outwardly towards those we call strangers. How can I make a difference? Number 2, what do I already engage in that puts me into a flow state? What could I start doing that could increase my ability to embody it? Number 3, what is a good that I can name for myself? A good that I can name for the world? Number 4, what does it mean for me to practice and live the 4 we believe statements that you saw on the slide earlier? Specifically those 4. So if you need to, go back and check out those 4 we believe statements. When I was referencing the Klan and neo-Nazism, right? What does it mean for me to practice and live those 4 we believe statements? Number 5, as I sit with the idea, the consciousness of impermanence, what thoughts and feelings come up? Simply contemplating impermanence, what thoughts and feelings come up? And what are some old beliefs that I used to be fooled by that I need to be released, that need to be released, that I need to release now in order to shift the experiences of my life? So in other words, What are some old beliefs that are still fooling me now that I am being invited to let go of, to release, in order to have a different, a more life affirming experience of my life? And breathe as we enter into that space of prayer, knowing that even though this thing called impermanence is the experience in the relative, there is this part of truth, this eternal, this immortal, this ever expanding part that is the absolute. There is a permanence as it relates to it. And so there is the duality of knowing that I am both temporal, I am temporary, I am limited, and I am limitless. I am eternal, both and. I am both this individual expression and I am that which is the all that is. Tat Tevam Asi. I am that. I am it. I am. And I am ever becoming more of what I am as the absolute in expression. So even as any of us faces the changing topography of life, the changing conditions of life, the changing conditions of our bodies, there is still that infinite part of us, that unchangeable part of us, that untouchable part of us that is still the absolute, the divine, God, Spirit. And it is that part that when this body is relinquished, when this body comes to an end, the truth of ourselves as the infinite expression, the infinite expressiveness of Spirit continues without end. So as we breathe, we continue to breathe in the awareness that this breath is a divine demonstration of flow. The inhale, the exhale, flow. The fluency of the body's intelligence demonstrating flow, ease, and grace. That as we connect with this, as we recognize this and realize this, we are invited into a deeper, more profound way of being. And as we are more profoundly embodying our beingness, it transforms and changes our doingness. And so we breathe, knowing that this prayer, this treatment, this word, this lesson, this embodiment is already done. It is already taking shape and already taking form, and is ever taking form to the degree that we move and allow our mental equivalent to be that. If I desire to eat salad, then my mental equivalent must be in alignment with salad or with pizza or with whatever that is, rather than. Why am I eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Why is that my mental equivalent if I am saying that my mental equivalent is that of New York pizza? Why am I saying that my mental equivalent is that of a world that works for all when my mental equivalent is actually? So in this moment, we step into greater realization, greater contemplation, greater demonstration of our life affirming mental equivalent of a world that truly works for all. And we walk the walk. We talk the talk. We live the prayer, knowing that our life is our amen. It's already so. And so it is. And so it is. Much love, appreciation, and blessings, everyone. Check the chat to see if we are meeting for the After Message Fellowship. And otherwise, I will see you somewhere at some point. Love and appreciation.
go with the flow.